Stats SA says child labour accounts for less than 5% in South Africa. It says this data is contained in its quarterly labour force survey. Experts have gathered at the Chief Inkosi Albert Luthuli International Conference Centre, where the 5th Global Conference on the Elimination of Child Labour is taking place. Liabo Setho is attending the conference and she joins us for more. Thanks very much, Liabo. Of course, you're covering this conference extensively, speaking to all manner of people who are well versed with the issue of child labour. Tell us more.
Nampo, good afternoon. It's not only the issue of data collection and statistics that we covered in the last hour, but there are many elements to it. For instance, you'll remember that the SDG goals that we have, the African Union or the United Nations SDG goals, one of those is SDG goal 8.7, which many people do not know about, which has to do with eradicating and eliminating the sexual exploitation as well as child labor in all its forms by I think it's 2030 if I'm not mistaken, and there are organizations which are aligned to this goal and who are working hard alongside what the governments are doing, and one of those organizations is Alliance 8.7, which Anoush Kavar is currently a representative of the French government to the ILO governing body and the G7, G20, labor employment and social protection services. But she's going to tell us more about what their role is as Alliance 8.7. She's the chair of Alliance 8.7 and how important it is for them to be doing what they're doing, and what do they do? That's the question we might ask to Anoush. Thank you so much for your time. Won't you tell us about Alliance 8.7? How important is your work with what we are gathered here to do, which is to find ways of eliminating forever, abolishing it, child labor?
Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm very happy to address this question. So, as you said, there is one target in the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, set by the UN in 2015, and the timeline for different targets of this SDG is for SDG target 8.7 is to eradicate child labor by 2025 and human trafficking, forced labor and modern slavery by 2030. Correct. So this is a very constrained agenda for all of us. So what we did is just when in 2015 these aims were given to the whole humanity, we thought that for target 8.7 we should create a global partnership. Okay. Why a global partnership? Because none of us, governments, international organizations, social partners or NGOs, can by ourselves alone reach these very challenging goals. Yes. For this reason, we put around the table international organizations like the ILO, but also the UNICEF, the FAO, UN Migration, and others, but also donor countries that were just giving assistance to low-income countries and developing countries where there was a high prevalence of child labor and forced labor, international social partners, business enterprise and enterprises network, because all our multinational companies have a shared responsibility because they are on the side of the purchase and producer countries are on the side of producing, there is a kind of competition to get to the top, as it were. There is a competition on the prices, and if you want to have low prices, then child labor and forced labor becomes interesting for those companies. So they must have a due diligence on their global supply chains to make sure that there is no child labor, forced labor in it. So all of us, we were gathered together and we created methodology and indicators, as you are very interested in statistics, I believe, so that those countries with high prevalence of child labor and forced labor step forward, become a pathfinder country,
Right.
and elaborate national plans in order to
Tell
accelerate.
me about which countries are we talking about right now?
So these pathfinder countries are from Asia, like Fiji, Vietnam, Sri Lanka. They are from Africa. Many African countries are part of it.
Yeah.
From Tunisia, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Malawi, and
Yeah.
others. And also Latin American countries like Chile, Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras. And also, as I started to chair this partnership 3 years ago, I considered that more developed countries, northern countries,
Yeah.
should also become a pathfinder.
Okay.
Because we have a responsibility on the global supply chains of our MNEs, multinational enterprises in our countries, but also on our national territory. You were talking about sexual exploitation,
yeah.
and this is a major issue also in Europe. So for this reason, France, the Netherlands, and Germany became pathfinder countries. We have, all of us, we have our national action plans,
Yeah.
and Alliance 8.7 helps us to achieve the goals nationally.
Are you necessarily tracking the 2025 and 2030 goals, or do you have your own deadlines?
No, I mean, actually, we are trying to cope with international deadlines.
Right.
And that is a challenge because all of our countries are responsible of part of it. But we are talking about a fair share because northern countries have much more instruments and possibilities to do so. And our MNEs, our multinational enterprises, have a lot of power through their purchase policies and their procurement policies to make sure that they are fair for those countries which are producing, material and also manufacturing, like, for example, chocolate,
Yes,
coffee,
yes.
mining, for our phone, for our iPhones and other, smartphones, etc., etc. We know that production is in Africa or, for example, in Asia for fishing, but consumption
is in the West, yeah.
in the West, and our consumers must also be aware that when they purchase, a T-shirt very
Wonder
cheaply.
if children were involved in the production of that
Yes.
phone or a T-shirt. That's a very interesting
Yes.
point to make. Anusha, thank you so much. Let's leave it here. I was very interested, Nompu, to find out about the pathfinder countries that Anusha just educated me about, and I definitely will be reading more on it. And she is the chair of Alliance 8.7. They're not just working by themselves. They're trying to be this global body. They are, in fact, a global body that makes sure that, things get done. They identify, they help governments to make proper decisions and policies, and also help with corporates and identifying problem areas. But we will be monitoring this conference from here in Durban, and of course much later we'll be with you once again and finding from other viewers, or rather other delegates that are here, about what their contribution is to this conference. It's back to you in studio, Nompu.